Okay, so the session is recording now. Again, I just wanted to thank um, Mr. Luis for participating in this webinar and taking the time. Luis Santiago Sierra, I hope I pronounced it correctly, is the Assistant Director of
Yeah, that's
Global
correct.
Initiatives. I've invited Luis to come to this session to talk more about Berklee College of Music and kind of talk about the admission process as well as financial aid possibilities for Iranian students and kind of give us a general sense of Berklee College of Music. We all know that's a very prestigious university in Boston and very respected in the field of music. And I've had a lot of students who've inquired about music programs in the United States, and I think that Luis would be the perfect person to kind of tell us a little bit more about that. Why don't you go ahead if you want to introduce yourself to the students? Right now we have two more students in the room, and maybe you can talk about your position and what you do at Berklee College of Music and your responsibility. And um, if you can also go ahead and talk a little bit about the history of Berklee College and different locations and its current location and kind of like a general sense of Berklee. Thank you.
Sure, sure. So thank you for inviting me. And briefly, I'm originally from Puerto Rico, and I went to study at Berkeley back in 2000 and graduated in 2003 with a degree in professional music. And I have since I left and did a couple other different jobs in my music career. And back in 2012, I went back to Berkeley as an assistant director for admissions, working the Latin American region. So there, I was working with the process of students applying to Berkeley, the interview process, the evaluation, taking the team of faculty members and staff that we were in charge of doing the whole process of the auditions for Berkeley, and as well as counseling the students and their families. And since May of last year, I was promoted to the position with the Global Initiative Office. And the Global Initiative Office is the office that runs the educational programs that we do uh, across the world. So we currently have programs in Italy, Colombia, Mexico, Puerto Rico, Santo Domingo, and we're looking to expand as this office is fairly new in this new endeavor that we're doing, and we're hoping to grow even further. And the idea is that we take faculty and staff for a whole week, and we move to these countries, and we do basically the same thing that we would do on a summer program in Boston. We take them with us to these countries, and with the program we do auditions, we do workshops, we bring special guests, and at the end, we close with a concert that usually we award scholarships to students that participate in the program that have been selected by the faculty. So that's my current position. And to answer to talk a little bit about Berkeley, briefly, Berkeley was founded back in the 1940s, and the idea was to establish a music program that will prepare the students based on what was current at the time in the music industry. So back then it was jazz music. And as the industry has evolved, Berkeley has evolved with it, and to the point that currently Berkeley has 12 music majors that go from the more traditional degrees that are education or performance, but then Berkeley went on to add arranging, composition, songwriting, music production, music design, music therapy, music business, and so on. And it still maintains that philosophy that music can be taught through contemporary music and what's happening currently in the music industry. So even though we still have some of the classical courses that are part of the well-rounded education, that's not the main focus of Berkeley. The focus is more oriented to current music industry trends. Um, and then we recently started our campus in Valencia, where we offer the master's programs. So they're in their third year, and over there they offer um, music technology, music performance, music business, and film scoring, and TV and video games composition. And beginning next year, we're going to start offering two master's programs in the United States. They're going to start first with the performance program, and then they're going to move on to the music therapy program at the master's level. So that's where we are right now with our programs and how we have evolved from being a small school to the current size of 4,000 students in the Boston campus and approximately 200 students in the Valencia campus. Um,
So your campus in Boston, is it
sure.
like a urban campus, or is it? Tell us a little bit more about your U.S. campus. What kind of setting is your
Yes,
campus? Is there housing offers, or the student
correct. So
population,
it's
and
correct. So it's an urban campus, what we call here in the U.S. an urban campus, and what that means is that we're located basically in the middle of the city. So our buildings are spread out through an area of I would say a little less than a mile. Buildings are fairly close to each other, and our housing is also spread out around those buildings. So we have five housing buildings. The furthest one will be about 2 to 3 blocks from the main buildings. So everything is within walking distance. But yeah, it's not an actual campus like maybe in some of the universities that university populates a whole area. It's more of a spread out through two main streets there in Boston, Boston Street and Mass Avenue. And it's very common in Boston. Most colleges over there are set up like that to be within the city. And again, we do offer housing. We have five buildings that accommodate students. It is not mandatory in the sense that if financially it's too much for a student to afford the housing in the college, then there are services to help you find housing around the area.
okay, okay, nice, thank you. Okay, so without further ado, I think this session was originally planned to be more about the admission process. So without further ado, I'm gonna
Okay.
basically delve into that and kind of ask a question. So just generally, I just want you to kind of give us an overview in a general sense what the admission process is for. I know at different levels, maybe undergrad and grad, there might be different processes taking place, but could you just give us an overview? If a student applies to Berklee College of Music, what is the admission process?
Okay, sure. So for the undergrad program, everybody needs to go to the Berkeley webpage, berkeley.edu, and there's an application that you'll fill out there. And it's all done online. Once you complete that application, within the application, it's going to give you the option of selecting a place where you want to audition. We normally travel around the world to conduct auditions, so you can find a place that is the nearest to your home. If that's not the case, we can also schedule an online audition, and you can select that also there in the application. So either way, you can select your closest site or an online audition. And once you select that, we're going to confirm with you that site or online and the date and the audition. So it's basically two sections to the whole process. There's going to be an audition and there's going to be an interview. With Berkeley being more of a contemporary school, the auditions are it's not going to be anything like, say, a conservatory type of audition. What we do is we spread out the audition within five areas. So the first section is going to be a prepared piece. So the students are allowed to bring any style of music, any style at all. What we do ask them is that it has to be something that really represents the student. What is it that they do that best represents their ability, or what talents do they have. We're not going to ask them for specific styles like jazz or classic and nothing like that. Actually, uh, one of the great things about Berkeley is that the international students tend to bring a wide variety of styles that are not as common in the U.S., and that's really refreshing for the campus, and we actually encourage that. So that's the first section. That prepared piece, we normally ask that you keep it about 5 minutes long because the whole audition should take anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes. You can also bring even your own music. So if you're a composer and you want to perform your own piece, you can do that as well. So that's not a problem. You can do it as a soloist. You can bring a group. You can have a play along, whichever is more convenient for you. Then we move up to the improv section, and basically what it is jazz students tend to have a little more skills on this, but it's to see how much vocabulary you have on your instrument. So the faculty is going to play along with you, maybe a blues or some like that nature, and they'll ask you to just jam with them and play along and improvise, and that gives them the sense of how much vocabulary and technique you have in your instrument. Then the next session will be the sight reading piece, and you're actually going to see the music before you go into the audition room. We're going to give you a book that has 4 samples per instrument. So you'll sit there with your instrument, look at the 4 samples for about 15 minutes before the audition, and when you come in, the faculty might call 1 or 2 to see your sight reading. We don't expect you to hit it perfectly, each of them. It just gives them a sense how quickly you're able to grab things. So not a big deal if you don't sight reading is your forte. That's something that we can actually teach you at Berklee, but we use it as a sense to see where you're at and what kind of help you need if you were to come to Berklee. And then the final part is the ear training, which is divided in 2 areas. We're going to do melodic ear training and rhythmic ear training. So on the melodic ear training, the faculty is going to play a few examples, a few intervals, and they're going to want you to sing them back just to see if your ear recognizes intervals. And they're also going to play a few chords, and they're going to want you to recognize the quality of the chord. Is it major, minor, diminished, and so on. You don't have to tell them which note they play. They just want you to recognize the quality of the chord. With the rhythmic one, then they'll play a few rhythms for you, and they want you to either clap them back or sing them back to the faculty. And again, just to see if you recognize and you have a sense of rhythm. We do not assign a specific percentage to each area. So what that means is that we look at the whole thing once you're done with the audition or the evaluation. So we know for a fact there are certain instruments that have a harder time with the sight reading. Other instruments like drummers tend to have a hard time with the ear training, the melodic portion. Singers usually have a harder time with the ear training in the rhythmic section. So we already know that. And when we're sitting and evaluating, we take that into consideration, and we evaluate as a whole. Once you're done with the audition, then you'll move on into a 15-minute interview with somebody from the admissions office. And basically what it is that's your moment to tell the admissions office who you are, what are you interested in, why do you want to come to Berklee, what are your plans. But the main idea of the audition, I'm sorry, the interview, it's for the admissions office to get a sense if you're ready to come to college. A lot of times, especially in the U.S., students are really young when they're coming to college, and they're still not quite clear uh, uh, why they're coming to college. And so it gives us a better sense that this person prepared to undertake a 4-year degree, and a music degree at Berklee is actually quite intense. So that's part of the process, just to see if this person understands what they're getting into, and they're mentally prepared to the task that will be coming to them. So that's the audition and interview process. Once that's completed, there's basically they get evaluated within different cycles. So there's a first round of evaluations that are done by December. Then there's another one done by late January, and then there's a final one by late March. And then after that, it's kind of on a rolling basis, depending if there's room available. But March will be the latest that you will want to have your process completed, because otherwise, there's no guarantee that you can actually get in the next semester that you're trying to get in. So that completes the audition and interview process. And just by completing the audition and interview process, you are already being evaluated for scholarship. So you don't have to do an additional process to be considered for scholarship. It's regardless whether you're domestic or international, you are being considered for scholarship. And when you get your answer back, you will get your answer for whether you were accepted or not, and whether you received some kind of scholarship or not. It's all done together. The only thing that might hold your decision for scholarship, if you fall behind on submitting your transcript, your grades from school, then admissions can complete the process, and even they can give you what's called a temporary or provisional acceptance, but it's not official. And until your acceptance is official, the scholarship office will not be able to evaluate you, because they only evaluate people that have completed the entire application process. But again, once you have everything completed, everybody is evaluated and considered for scholarship. So it has nothing to do with being domestic or international, like I said.
So, if I understood correctly, I just wanted to go back a little bit. So you said the audition process is in 5 stages, right? 5 different stages, or 4?
Correct.
5. Okay. So I guess my question is for
So it's four, but the last one is divided in two areas basically.
okay. Okay, so as we know that our main audience today is international students, I was wondering how do international students come for audition in terms of student visas? I mean, do you issue visas for people that you select for auditions? Do you I mean, what's the percentage of the applicants that you select for auditions, or does the school provide any assistance in terms of having the students coming here for auditions, or can auditions be done virtually? I mean, my assumption is that your preference is that students would be here for auditions in the United States, but just tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. There are three options that they can use for the audition. So on the Boston campus, we conduct auditions pretty much every Saturday, beginning in October until early mid-March. So if the student wants to come and see the campus and have an audition at the campus, you can do so. Um, it's not required. It's not going to make a difference if you do it on the campus or if you do one of our international auditions. So option number two will be if Berkeley is traveling to an area nearby and you can go to that site, then by all means, you're more than welcome to come to one of our sites. For example, I mainly work with the Latin community, so we visit in Latin America. We go to Mexico, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Colombia, um, um, Ecuador, Argentina. One of my colleagues who is in charge of Europe, then he takes care of that entire area, and then we have another colleague that basically deals with Asia and the Middle East. So we do travel pretty much all year long to these sites. If for some reason we do not visit your area and you can't afford to come to the States because it could be expensive between the flight and hotel and so on, then you can request an online audition. And then at that point, what will happen is they'll send you the requirements for you to be able to do an online audition, meaning the technical requirements, what kind of connection and so on. And you'll be connected to a faculty member in the U.S. and they'll do the audition from one of their offices in the U.S. And then after that, they'll connect you with somebody that will do your interview. And you can do this from home or from the school. So there are different options to help you out. But don't feel that it's mandatory to come to the States. It's not, and it's not going to make any difference whether you get accepted or not if you did it in Boston at a international site or online. It's still going to be evaluated the same.
So when do the students have to express this? I mean, if they're unable to come to the United States for auditions, do they have to kind of specify that in their application that they prefer virtual auditions, or is it after the application is sent to the university? Um, Also, just wondering, you said that one of your colleagues cover Europe and Middle East. I'm not sure if your colleague also travels to Iran, but I'm very interested to kind of know what countries you'll be holding auditions, like nearby countries, I guess, so then students can travel and
Hmm.
participate in your auditions. I mean, is there like a list or like any information online where students can go find and like a schedule or like a tour schedule, some sort of yeah.
Sure, sure. So you can select the the option whether Boston international site or online when you're doing the application, because you're going to come to a section that is going to ask you how do you want to audition, and that's the point that you select. I want to do it this way. Now that doesn't mean that if something happens later on. Let's say you selected Boston, but then for whatever reason you can't come to Boston. You can contact the office and make the changes. Um, so don't feel that once you selected something, that's it. But the option is there once you do the application. As far as the sites that we visit, by late July, the Office of Admissions posts on the website the entire list of places that we're visiting. A lot of times we know the countries that we're going, but we might not know the exact dates that we're going because it's going to depend on if we're contracting facilities to use for the audition or coordinating with a school that is going to partner up with us so that we can provide the instruments and so forth. But you'll see that we're going to X country or whatever it is that we're going, and so you'll see it there, the whole list. When it comes to the Middle East, that one is it's a little bit difficult for us. It depends on what's going on in the area. So, for example, we normally try to go to Israel. It's one of the countries that we visit. But if there's something happening political in the country or that the U.S. Uh, might put some warnings or what have you, then the college, for considering safety and so on, might decide, well, this year we may not go to Israel or we may not go to this other country. It all depends. We had that happen in Europe 2 years ago, where we visited some of the countries that all of a sudden were involved in a civil conflict. So at that point, then the college will take the decision to stand down and find another way to connect with those students. So that doesn't mean, again, that if we can't visit your country, we're not going to provide you the audition. We'll find a way to help you out. So I don't have the whole list on the top of my head, but we can go to the website, berkeley.edu, and on the admission sections, you'll see the entire list of all the countries in the world that we visit. And the updated one should be coming up by mid to late July. They'll have it up there.
Yeah. Okay, that's wonderful. By any chance, do you visit UAE or Turkey? Because I think those are the most important locations that's closest to Iran. And my assumption is that because there's no diplomatic relations between the U.S. and Iran, your college um, isn't having visits to Iran. So I was wondering because a lot of my students have can easily travel to Armenia, Turkey, and UAE. Is that included in the list or the countries that you've visited in the past?
Yeah, Turkey, I know for sure that we visit. Yeah, Turkey for sure. We do visit pretty much every year. So depending on, sometimes we might cancel one of the visits if the numbers of applicants is really low. So then at that point, the admissions office will have to make a decision if they still want to do the trip, or they'll do it online. But Turkey, actually, it's one of the places that we visit. And normally what we do is we tie it to one of the other countries in the area so that we do a couple of different uh, dates of auditions within that area. And I'm actually opening right now their page, so I can give you a list, um, audition. And I might be able to give you an idea of some of the countries that we visit. But but we do visit Turkey.
Right. You can also type that link in the chat box on the right side, and if possible. But
Sure. Let me. So I'm copying the link here, and I can post it here. There we go. And
so it's www.berkeley.edu/admission/undergraduate/state. Um, that's where you can go and find out about the list of countries that Berkeley visits. Um, I think Turkey is considered part of Europe. So I see Greece, Barcelona, London.
so I'm seeing from the list up there right now is from this past year that we completed the admission cycle. And I'm looking at Tel Aviv in Israel, um, Ramallah in the West Bank. Let's see, um, Athens. It looks like we didn't visit Turkey last year. Most likely, that had to do with the numbers. If the amount of applicants was low, then they would have decided to do an online audition, most likely.
So yeah, I mean, they'll go on that website and check. Um, okay, so going to the next point. Um, so talking about finances, you mentioned that once the student is admitted into the college, they're automatically considered for um, financial aid, and um, they're going to be a decision. So is it safe to say that I mean, what's the percentage of the students that get into the college and get financial aid? And is there don't get any financial aid? And what does that what is it based on? Is it based on the is it based on the auditions or based on academic background or personal background? And how do you guys evaluate? I know this session is not mostly about financial aid, and maybe you're not the expert on how financial aid is distributed, but just give us a general sense of like who gets financial aid. Is it need based or um, is it different case by case? Yeah.
Sure. So basically, the way it works is we get about somewhere between 7,500 and 8,000 applicants per year for the entire school year. And we're able to bring about 1,100 to say 1,200 students per semester out of those 8,000. Uh, and that's how we maintain the population about roughly 4,000 to 4,200 students at the campus. Out of the students that get accepted, 30% of them are going to get some type of scholarship. And there are different amounts, and I can explain that in a minute. But so say if we accepted 1,000 students on a given semester, then roughly about 300 might get scholarship. The decision of scholarship is based first is going to be the audition. That's the main portion that they look at, the talent level. So there's a scoring system that they use, and they are looking for students that score at a certain number and higher. Anything below that, then scholarship at that point doesn't look at those. So those are usually that group is on the top two tier of the scoring system. Then they're going to go and look at the academics because somebody might be very talented on the instrument, but their academics are low. And at that point, what the college is looking at is somebody that is not only talented, but are they going to be able to complete an academic program? And that's why the transcripts are important because it tells the college whether they think this person is will be able to finish the college or not. So that's when they look at the academics. Then there are other variations. For example, in the case of international students, that's usually a plus because the college is trying to bring more international students. We're currently, our international student percentage goes from 36% to approximately 40%, and the college actually wants to increase that number. Because again, being the music industry, what it is, they want to have that variation and that wide range of styles and talents coming from all over the world. So that's why we really push for having a wide international community. So any international student that applies already has, there's a system that they use at the college to score the whole application, and that already puts them a little bit higher because of the international factor. Then there's also the fact of instruments. There are certain instruments that we get too many. For example, singers, it's the largest pool of applicants that we get, anywhere between 3,000 students per year. So with that said, that doesn't mean that they don't get scholarship. It just means that for singers, because we're getting so many, they need to be really high on their audition versus if you get an instrument like hand percussionist, and because we have a department that will teach Middle Eastern drumming, Latin drumming, African, Brazilian. The number of those students is so low that the college is actually pushing to get more of those students to come in. So they'll invest a little more scholarship on those kind of instruments, hand percussion, low brass like tuba, trombone, and so on. So if they score the high rating that they're looking for and they play one of those instruments, the chances of that student getting an award is going to be higher. And that's how basically they balance the amount they're going to give. The amounts can go from anywhere from what we call a partial award, which can be about $5,000, a little more, and then they move up 5,000, 10,000, 15, 20. 35,000 will be what we call a full tuition award. So that basically covers your entire tuition. You still will have to cover then your housing expenses. We do have an award called the Presidential Scholarship, and the college awards 7 of those. And that one not only covers your tuition, but it also covers the housing at the college. Now, the way that one is awarded, it's out of everybody that received a full tuition, out of all the students that get the $35,000 scholarship, we normally select about 30 per year. 7 of those students are going to be looked based on financial needs. So they're going to look at all those 30 students, and they're going to look at the ones that have the largest financial need. They're going to give those seven away, and those are actually divided by region. So there are, out of the seven, I believe is three are for international students, and four are for domestic students. And so we do that per year. So there is plenty of awards, and it's more of a matter of once you get your award to see will that be enough, and what other steps could I take to then finance the education.
That's great. So, a little bit, I just wanted to kind of recap. I know we kind of talked about the admission process and all that stuff. I don't want you to go to like great lengths about graduate admissions, but I know that you said that there's going to be two different fields of studies that you're going to offer graduate degrees in next year, and you already have a campus in Spain that offers master's programs. So just, I mean, is the admission process kind of similar for the master's students? Is there more experience expected from master's students? What is something that master's students need to keep in mind when applying to Berkeley in terms of an audition or application, or is it the same process, or kind of similar process?
Sure. Okay. So first, let me explain that there's going to be a very marked difference between the two campuses as far as the type of applicants that they're going to look for. So the Valencia campus, there are programs over there run for a year, so it's an intense 1 year program, regardless of the degree that you're doing, but it's going to be a 1 year program. And so the students are expected to be there physically for the whole year. The programs in Boston, it's aimed more for people that are already professionals in the campus, so in their fields, I mean. So, for example, the performance program, they're going to be looking for people that already have a career as a musician, have a few recordings already out there, are working professionally, and they're unable to come to the campus for an entire year. So it's what we call over here a low residency program. So the students will come for a couple of weeks through the year to take some of the one-on-one classes or work on the projects, but for the most part, they're going to be away working on their research. So it's going to be a low residency versus the 1 year program in Valencia. So that's one of the main two differences. As far as how we select the people for the master's programs in Valencia, only the performance applicants will have to do an audition. Everybody else goes through a process of submitting a portfolio and recommendation letters and so on, because the other programs are more academic oriented. Yeah. I mean, they're going to still be doing music, but I mean, it's more of a research kind of thing versus the performance, which obviously is more focused on, towards the instrument. So performance students do an audition, they will submit a portfolio, letters of recommendations, academics, and so on. The business students submit also a portfolio and a proposal of a project that they would like to work, whether they're the technology guys will submit a portfolio of work that they have done as producers or anything that has to do with technology, and same thing with the film scoring people. They'll submit a portfolio of pieces that they have written, and again, all of them will require references and academics and so on. The three that don't require an audition do require an interview with the program director. So you'll sit one-on-one with the program director, and this can be done through Skype or a phone call. And you can sit with them, and because this person's actually basically handpick the students that are coming to the program based on your experience and that proposal that you're going to be submitting, and that's how they select the class. So it's a little bit different from the undergrad, and of course at the performance level, and well, actually any of the levels, they'll expect a higher level of skill of the students, which is basically expected of a master's student.
So the two degrees that you said will be offered in Boston, the music business, Masters of Music Business, is that part of that? What were the two majors that you said?
No, not for the Boston program, not yet. They are going to keep adding some programs. Right now, the first one that is going to open is performance, and then music therapy. They're looking into have it open this year. It might not happen this coming September because the music therapy program is tied to the music therapy board, medical board that is in the U.S. and there are 15 things that they were still working on it. Their intention is to have it open now by September, but if not, then it'll be the next year. And those are the first two. And then they'll continue from that. I know there's talk about the education masters. There's talk about a business master's program. But for the time being, it will be performance and therapy, the first two that they're focusing on getting running right now.
Are you don't offer any DMA or any PhD programs? Sorry,
I couldn't hear that last question. You can say that again?
I said, do you offer any Doctor of Musical Arts or PhD programs, doctorate level, or is it just not?
Yeah, I mean, for those masters, for the masters in Boston.
No, no, do you offer any PhD or like beyond master's programs, like after master's, like doctoral degrees? Do you offer that?
Oh no, 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 not yet. I don't think that the at this point that they're not looking into that, being that the master's office is actually fairly recent at Berkeley. Like I said, the campus in Valencia only has this is their third year, and then we haven't even started in Boston yet with the master's. So for the time being, what they want is to focus on the master's program, and part of it has to do the way the education system works here in the U.S. Um, for each program that you decide to open, there's a requirements that the university has to meet. That was the reason that we opened a campus in Valencia because in order to be able to open a master's program, we need to have a specific amount of facilities focused only for those programs. And back then, we just couldn't facilitate a new building within the Boston program. That's part of the reason we decided to find a partner outside of the U.S. Now that over the last 5 years, we were able to acquire new facilities within the Boston area. That's why we're going to be able to provide the two new programs in the U.S. But for the time being, we're not looking into the PhD, not yet.
So, I mean, towards the end, I just wanted to kind of, first, I just wanted to ask, have you, in the application pool that you've received in the past, has there been any Iranian students applying from Iran? Um, that's also a question I was wondering.
Sure. No, we have had a few, being that it was in my specific area, I didn't work directly with them, but from my colleague that used to work with them, the problem that we mainly encounter, and it happens in many other countries, not only in the Middle East, but one of the problems was the support from the family. Not many families uh, will support a student to go do a music degree, and that's not uncommon. In Latin America, we come across that very often. Families that are come from a background more like business or medical fields or engineering and so forth. When their kids say, "I want to do a music degree," for many families that's kind of hard. And so I deal with that a lot in Latin America. So it's not uncommon. So in the Middle East, I remember my colleague talking to me about it. It was kind of the same culturally that there were very few that were applying to Berkeley. That was one of the reasons. The other was us not being able to visit those countries as often as we do countries in Europe or Latin America. We notice that the more presence that we can have in a country and we can educate the area about what we do and what we can offer, it helps to then bring the numbers. And because we're not able to visit Iran and some other countries that we would love to go, that's why the numbers are not as high as if we'd like to see them.
Um, so, generally, to kind of my understanding, what I took away from Berklee College of Music is that this school, so the focus is mainly on contemporary music, right, as opposed to classical music, correct?
Correct, correct. So even though we still have a base, of course, if you're doing the undergrad, you're going to have to take traditional counterpoint, and you'll take theory, harmony, ear training, and so forth. Um, you once you fulfill those requirements, the focus is still going to be more into contemporary. The theory classes that we take are more jazz oriented. The ensembles will range anywhere. We do have an orchestra and the film scoring orchestra, and we have traditional jazz groups, and then they'll go through rock, hip hop, Latin music, the turntable type of ensembles. So there's a little over 250 ensembles throughout the college because they're also divided by different levels, so that way you can give the student an opportunity to be in a group with students on his level, so that way they don't feel overwhelmed if everybody's too high, or you don't get bored if you're really high and then the other students are kind of low on their skill level. So we try to balance the levels that way. So that's why we have about 250 ensembles, and the range of music is just pretty much any style of music. So we do have some classical stuff. It's a smaller portion of the school, and most of them you'll find them in the film scoring department where they're working more in those kind of projects. Everything else is going to have more of a contemporary music focus. Even when you do, of course, music business and production and everything related to technology, it's related to what's happening currently in the industry.
Like for example, if an Iranian person is interested in, um, like, because I know this is like a big trend in Iran right now. There's a lot of rap groups that are forming in Iran, and they're very popular, and they talk about social change and the equality and so forth. And I know that's become the trend in Iran in terms of music. So that would also be considered like part of contemporary music.
Correct. So even in the audition, we maybe a few years back we will only consider singers that they jazz or pop or that kind of stuff. In more recent years, seeing the trends of hip hop and rap and electronic music and so forth, Berkeley has adapted to that as well. So I remember a little over a year ago, we auditioned a kid that he was a beatbox for a group, and we actually accepted him as a beatbox singer because we do have the facility for that. That said, if you're a singer, of course, you're going to be expected to take technical classes as a voice principal because we do see voice as a separate instrument, as an instrument in itself. So if you're a singer, you don't have to be able to play another instrument to be evaluated for Berkeley. That voice will be your instrument. If you are what we call a beat producer here in Puerto Rico, where urban music was developed to the point that basically all Latin America now copies. It's it's a very big thing, and we do have groups like that at Berkeley. What we do ask of the students in that case is that they need to be able to play an instrument. And what I mean with that is that a lot of times we see urban people that work on the urban industry. They know how to program a computer and they know how to program beats and so on, but they don't actually play an instrument. And unfortunately, at that point, that might hinder their ability to come in because they are going to ask them to be able to play if at least the keyboards so that you can if you're doing programming but you do it with a keyboard or any other instrument because everybody at Berkeley gets evaluated on an instrument, they get accepted based on that instrument, and then they can go on into the different majors after a year at Berkeley, but you still need to have a principal instrument that you perform on so that you can be accepted.
Um, that's That was very information. Thank you. It was very informational. So to conclude this
Hmm.
session, I just wanted to kind of ask you kind of maybe explain a little about your alumni and the alumni association, and what do Berkeley graduates do? Where do they end up going? What industries? Are they prominent in their field? So I don't know if you have any data on that, but just tell us a little bit more about that. If somebody studies there, what is the networking opportunities in the industry, or how can they get jobs after graduation, or that sort of stuff.
Sure. So one of the things that we do uh, push on the students and teach them how to do it is the networking because we understand it's a very, very important concept for them to understand that because that's how the music industry now. It's about who you know and how you can connect once you finish. So at least in the United States, if you go to any of the major cities that are hubs for music, Miami, Nashville, LA, New York, um, Austin, and so on, you're going to see that the Berkeley alumni is really, really well connected in there and well embedded. And when you move to one of the cities, it doesn't take you long to connect with alumni and then get your projects going. Um, and we do the same internationally. If the places that I mainly visit, Colombia, most of the main projects that run over there are Berkeley alumni. Same thing in Buenos Aires, in Mexico, and so on. Up to date, the alumni at Berkeley has earned over 300 Grammys and Latin Grammys over the last years. You have people like some of the names, Vinny Colaiuta, drummer, session drummer in LA, Quincy Jones, Diana Krall, John Mayer, I think at Berkeley, one of the big names in Latin America like Tommy Torres, who is a producer for Ricky Martin, a good friend of mine who recently won a Grammy with Carlos Vives, who's a well-known singer from Colombia. You'll find them in the industries like film scoring, where alumni were part of the composer team for the Avengers and Lord of the Rings and the Simpsons and so on. I'm not as familiar with names in Asia and the Middle East. I do know from talking to some of my colleagues that, again, some of the major producers or engineers and musicians are Berkeley alumni that are now returning and starting their own projects. And like I said, a lot of that has to do with how we teach them to work the network and some of the requirements that we give them on the undergrad because we do require them to take legal aspects of music, technology courses. Most of them are required to do a portfolio where they show their demo and their bio and how to do a contract and how to prepare for to do business once they're out of the school. We offer them. We have a career center at Berkeley that they can have access to, and they constantly bring workshops to do this. How to negotiate, how to build a web page, how to how to do that first recording and budget for it and so forth. So we do try to give them as much as we can to have skills and tools so that they can be successful once they leave Berkeley. And even after they leave, they can stay connected to Berkeley through the alumni network. And we do workshops and different programs throughout the year. As an example, the programs that I manage now for Berkeley in Latin America, it's easier for me to hire alumni in many of those countries and use them for the programs that we do as either professors or guest artists or consultants instead of having to fly an entire team from Boston to wherever we're going. So yeah, that's another big thing that we maintain connected with them, and we see them as the experts in the area in those countries, and so we seek their advice, and then vice versa. Many of the alumni will reach to us and say, I got this project. I would like to get Berkeley's involvement in it. And actually, it's my office that manages those kind of connections internationally. And so we're always looking for new opportunities like that. So it is quite a wide network, and we do our best to try to maintain that connection and get you established once you leave our campus.
For explaining that. So finally, to conclude this presentation, any tips or any recommendations in terms of applying to Berkeley you have for international students or students from Iran? Anything that could help students? Any special tips like for audition or anything that you could think of for students? I know you went to great lengths about the process and the um, audition process. So just if you have any tips for them, what would it be?
Sure. There, if you feel that maybe you haven't had the opportunity to have more of a contemporary music education as you're preparing, there are two options that you can use to have a better idea what Berkeley does. One, most of our books that we use on campus are available for you to purchase on the Berkeley Press. So you can see the books that are being used at Berkeley there, especially for harmony and ear training and arranging, because again, being more of a contemporary setting, it might be different from if you came from more of a conservatory type of education. It might be good for you to look at some of this to have an idea what's the education like in the U.S., specifically Berkeley. Also, we do have an online school that we use, and there you can do one single class to a certificate to even a degree now. We started offering degrees through the online program. I personally use some of the courses when I was getting ready to do my master's a couple of years ago. I had been out of school for about 6 years, and I was doing a master's in songwriting, and I wanted to get a little more up to date with some of the technology stuff like Logic and so forth for the recording. So I took 3 courses with the online program back then to get me back to do an update for me. And it was really helpful because once I got to the master's program, I knew the basics of it. I was able to run and start doing the recording. So those programs are run by Berkeley faculty. They develop the class for Boston campus, and then they arrange it for a way that can be delivered online. And that's really helpful for you to get a sense of the Berkeley method and maybe connect with some of the faculty. And then last would be if you have the opportunity to participate in one of those programs that we do around the world, uh, then that's also a great opportunity for you to meet the faculty directly and talk to them, and also to see if the way that we teach and we run our classes is what you're looking for. Because the other thing to consider is a Berkeley the right school for you, depending on what your goals are. If not, maybe were you looking for a more conservatory type of school, or are you looking more for a technical kind of school? Like if you're looking specifically to become an engineer, but you don't want to deal with the instrument portion, then there are schools like Full Sail in Orlando or Musicians Institute in LA. So it's also it's a two-way thing. When we're looking at you, we're looking to see if you're the right student for Berkeley, but vice versa. You should look at Berkeley as the right institution for you, and if not, no hard feelings, and then you can find that right path that for your career plan.
Wonderful. Is it, do you think, is it okay for students? I mean, if they have further questions about the admission process, or if there's something that wasn't answered in this session, would it be okay for my students to contact you, or is there any other specific person that they can contact via email?
No, no. Feel free to contact me, and if I don't know the answer, I will get you with the right person. Again, since my office is the one that deals with all the international programs, most likely will know the answer to your question. If I need to connect you with somebody else, whether it's the online program or something more specific to masters and so on, then I'll tell you who the right person will be, and I'll guide you to that person. So feel free to email any questions to me, and I'll be more than glad to give you a hand.
Could you just tell my students their email address?
Sure. I'll copy right now. All right. There is.
Okay, so it's LSANCIAGO1 at berkeley.edu. Um, Great. Do you
Correct.
also have a YouTube channel? Does Berkeley have a YouTube channel of like samples of works or concerts or anything, past sessions
Oh
that
yeah, you can pretty much if you do a search in YouTube for anything Berkeley, you'll come across a whole range of because pretty much every department has their videos up there, and the concerts that we do at Berkeley get recorded and get posted. So you can pretty much just do a search for Berkeley and maybe type an instrument name or style of music, and you'll come across dozens and dozens of videos that we have up there.
okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for participating in this webinar. I really want to express my gratitude, and I'm really thankful that you answered all the questions, and you've been more than helpful. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your help for my students.
Oh, no, and thank you for inviting me. I'm really grateful. Thank you.
Problem. So with that, I'm just gonna conclude this session, and I'm gonna close the chat. Thank you so much, and take care.
Take care. Bye.